Hey everyone, I'm Dan, co-founder of Clever.
And I'm Craig, General Manager for the US and the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Kahoot. Good to see you today.
It is so great to be back on the Launch EDU launch competition stage. It is 9 years since I was up here pitching, and it's a lot less nerve-wracking here as a host. But this competition was a transformative part of Clever's journey. It was our big, announcement, our big launch moment, and it was a huge accelerator for our growth. So it's so great to be able to be back and to support this competition.
And here we are, Dan. You might have won, but we ended up on the podium, top of the podium together. So
competitors can turn into friends.
Exactly.
All right.
Remember
Before
that.
we get started, and we've got some amazing companies to see. I just want to know who's in the room. I want to know how many educators are here. If you're an educator, can you raise your hand? All right, let's give it up for the educators. How many folks, and I know some of them are right here, but how many folks are in the business of EdTech? Maybe you're a founder, a startup employee, business folks. Awesome, give it up. Maybe current and future launch participants. And then, do we have any investors? Anyone in the audience who might be writing checks? Oh, we got a few investors. So
I see some hands raised twice, so.
It's the slashes,
Yes.
the dual threats or triple threats. I'm an educator and a business person.
We do more than one thing, Dan.
Yeah. All right, Craig. Well, let's introduce our fabulous judges.
Perfect. And yes, I do want to spend a few moments to thank the 3 judges we have here today. We have Heejae Kim, who is founder and CEO at TalkingPoints. If you want to just raise your hand. Great, thank you. We have Liz Dozier, who is founder and CEO at Chicago Beyond. Thank you for joining. And last but certainly not least, we have Riyaz Gayasaddin, Vice President of Program and Talent at Camelback Ventures. So thank you all for joining today.
That's an amazing set of judges. All right, before I introduce our first launch participant, a finalist, I just want to give a little bit of context. So what you are about to see here is 6 of the best of the best. There were 100 companies that applied for the launch competition this year, and they're fantastic. I know many of amazing companies that weren't able to make it to this stage. So we have 6 finalists that have been through a few rounds of intense judging, and they are going to be here telling you about their companies, their mission, their impact, their potential to change the world. So I just want you, before we get any of these companies up on stage, just give it up for our finalists. It is, I feel, just so privileged and delighted to be able to see these companies pitch. And to start us off, we've got Epixego. Come on up, Epixego. Give it up.
Hi, can you hear us okay? All right. We are Team Epixego. It's a mouthful. It's pronounced Epixego. Mentoring and career development is broken today. We have 27 million hidden workers and 11 million unfilled jobs. And this situation is expected to worsen with the future of work coming up, if you're not already there. Mentoring and career development are critical to post-secondary success, and that is the space Epixego is in. May I tell you an Epixego story, not in prose, but in verse, of mentors and careers, not the glory. For diverse students' needs, it was adverse. Mentoring and career development, you see, has a flawed model. A model where a mentor is a guru who knew, and a mentee to skillfully knowledge accrue. It is actually siloed, today's model, offered within groups, functions, departments, and institutions. And the assumption behind keywords is based on professions being tractable, independent components. But honestly, in a changing future of work with cooperation between professions, this is not really a feasible solution for the future of work. Mentoring programs today do one thing well. For a predefined list of mentors and mentees, they manage calendars well. To consistently meet a mentee's needs, to know what is shared beyond what a resume reads, for exploration and discovery through silent mentoring, a process so natural with clear thinking. You see, for that to happen, the mentee needs to be allowed to observe and discover, rather than define a goal up front, to be able to learn from near peers without the fear of conversations, such as those that you have with advisors or your professors or managers. That's exactly what our research indicates as well. Becoming a farmer, a scientist, a musician, or an engineer is more complex than just an academic degree. Between what you know and who you know lies hidden the opportunity for a career to grow. In 10 years, the jobs most in demand, we don't know. What students know how to do, which are their skills and learnings that you see, who they know, their social capital, intrinsically shape what they believe they can be, their occupational identity. So if students are not exposed to potential careers that exist, or able to discover if they like to do it, how can they demonstrate that they are a best fit and achieve their goals? So our team imagined, what if every student had a role they would be a likely fit, with a unique competency fingerprint to transcend learning beyond degrees and institutions, to shine on self-efficacy? We have a solution. Epixego's platform matches mentees with near-peer role models and opportunities based on a competency fingerprint, providing them a way to observe and also discover, to be mentored by purpose, not process. So a role model for Tinuola that you see here, she found in Matt, an alumni, a kindred spirit for public education with who she could chat. Anya found a role model in a GSI who taught her that a minor in design would qualify. And in Dr. Warrener from Harvard, Anya discovered to explore interests in anthropology and biology, or an internship in cybersecurity while studying ethnology. We are a team of committed technologists and educators, and we are builders, collaborators, and investigators. And we are looking to scale our impact globally with a purpose that we believe is woefully needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Epixego. First, I'll ask the judges if they have any questions, and I will be monitoring the Engage stream on Slido. So, judges, questions for Epixego? Riyaz?
What's the incentive for someone to mentor with the program?
Great question. The way we have gone about this program is the incentives for somebody to mentor is intrinsically the fact that they want to be mentored as well. So we have near peers who are alumni who want to be mentored themselves by their near peers who are also other alumni. So the near peers for the current students could be the existing seniors or the recent alumni, and for the recent alumni, it's their near peers. So creating a community where you're not just a mentor or a mentee, but it's interchangeable.
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Heejae, please.
Can you tell me a little more about how it works?
Yeah.
Is it a platform? Are you matching? And then I have a second question around recruiting. How do you do the recruiting of the mentors and the mentees?
Excellent. So the way it works is we have been working with program directors. So whether they're at a university who's a faculty director, or whether they are at a nonprofit working with a program like the NASDAQ's intern program with community colleges, we work with them. They have an interest in their current students, as well as they have relationships with their alumni. Mm. And they are the people that help recruit the students, as well as their alumni, into the program. And the way this works is, so we work with administrators to get the students and their alumni onboarded. And each student and alumni create their profile. And this is not a marketing document, I want to emphasize that. This is something that tracks based on social cognitive career theory. It tracks their signals for self-efficacy through in-classroom learning and outside the classroom learning. And we use those signals to map it to a higher level competency, what we call a fingerprint, which evolves over time. As they learn new things, as they change, and as they have new insights, if you will. And it is using that fingerprint, the competency fingerprint that we use to match to near peers who are just a couple of steps ahead of them. That's how that works. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, great job. Close. Can you just talk a little bit about your just general, like, overall mentee profile, and then talk about, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit about how you think about representation across mentorship and what that looks like between mentee and mentor, and how you think about equity overall.
Sure. So a mentee, typical mentee profile, if you want to go back to the slides, we can even show you. So Tinuola is one of the freshman students. I don't know if we can show it, but she's one of the freshman students that was there on the presentation at WashU. And typically the profile that they fill out has no information about their grades or the GPA. We don't touch that. We are looking for self-efficacy. What a student believes, because that's exactly what research supports, what a student believes that they're good at is what we're looking at. So we are looking for information through a template, if you will, that asks them questions to identify what are those experiences. It could be in the classroom and outside the classroom. That's how we get that typical information. Now, to address your question of how do you look at representation, and because our whole idea is you have to broaden, the social capital to inform occupational identities. So one of the things we do is, by default, the role models that are surfaced are all the members on the platforms. So we want to actually democratize inspiration, if you will. People should, and that one of the examples we showed was with Dr. Warner. So if you see over here, Dr. Warner is a professor at Harvard, and she is a near peer for her, but she showed up even though she doesn't belong to the WashU ecosystem. And if you look at Tinuola, this was the one before, she did not know math at all. And what they resonated on was actually public school education and how they were both products of public school education, and education was a factor that they truly believed in. That is how we think we can address the equity part.
We have just a few moments left, and I want to take a few quick questions from the audience, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
First, do you see this being used in high schools or post-secondary?
Post-secondary is where we are targeted right now.
Great. Are the mentors volunteers?
They are all volunteers, yes.
Okay, and finally, how did you get the sample size you have? Did you work within schools?
So I am an educator too. I work at UC Berkeley, so it comes with all the advantages and no disadvantages because the patent is ours. But the way we work is with the organization and institutions to actually get into to implement mentoring programs that they have in place.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Love that lightning round. Thank you, Epixego. What a poetic presentation. Let's give it up. Thank you so much. If folks are standing, we have lots of seats open in the front. Come on up. We don't bite. No need to stand, although we may have a standing room crowd here. Next up, we have IEP and Me. So let's welcome them to the stage.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, well, hello. My name is Crota Martin, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer for IEP and Me, and I'm an educator. I've been working in education for 15 years as a classroom teacher, as a school-based leader in special education, and managing school districts.
And my name is Bridget Leslie, and I'm the CEO of IEP and Me. For the last 10 years, I have been consumed in the special education world. Years ago, when I was the only special educator in a middle school, I worked in 10 classrooms every single day, managing more than 30 students with learning disabilities. And each one of these students has an IEP or individual education plan.
Let me show you what those plans look like. Now, these plans vary from state by state, and it is a very lengthy document, sometimes up to 30 pages. And it's really rooted in legalities, it's rooted in compliance, and it's a legal contract between students and families. The problem is it's so confusing. It's filled with a lot of legal jargon, and it's way too complicated for the key stakeholders, the students and families, and the teachers who have to implement them.
And in the US, 1 in 5 students has a learning difference. 1 in 5, which means that more than 21 million parents throughout the country depend on that document to support their students and depend on the IEP process that's in the schools. And each year, the federal government spends more than $100 billion, billion with a B, on special education.
So while this document works for compliance purposes, it is not successful for implementing practices. Trust me, I've sat in court hearings as an educator where IEP misunderstandings led to distrust between schools and families. And at IEP and Me, we take this document and we translate it to this, a digestible, interactive version of a student's IEP that anyone on their IEP team can access. So our version brings back the humanity in the student. It centers the student, and it highlights the accommodations so students, families, and teachers can focus on what's really needed for the student to be successful in the classroom. While we center the most important information, which is the accommodations, we don't forget everything else that is within this legal document, including the goals. So all the compliance information is still here, it's just in a very clean format.
So beyond translating that legalese document into something usable, we harness a product-led growth strategy, which allows us to increase equity in the IEP space by being free for any and all parents to use IEP and Me as an online binder. They can access our version of the IEP, they can invite any stakeholders to join their IEP and Me team, and they can host pertinent documents and communication related to their students.
For our IEP and Me buyers, which are the schools, we allow educators to finally unlock the information that they really need to use the IEPs in the classroom. So the teacher platform, as you can see, you can do a student search. See, who are your students in which class? What do they need? What are resources just to demystify special education? And how can we ensure we're having that clear and consistent communication with teachers, families, and students?
And finally, we make the student the center of the IEP process for the first time by giving them access and a leading role. Our character, Eddie, helps them create their student-led IEP each year and teaches students about special education, about their rights, about their specific learning needs, and what they'll need outside of the classroom.
Students, families, and teachers cannot be more excited about IEP and Me. So a lot of the formal and informal user interaction we've had over the past year, but definitely even in the past 48 hours here at South by Southwest EDU has been overwhelming. There's so many people that are aligned to this mission. Even parents, students, former students who say, man, I wish this was around when I was a kid. And the biggest question we've been getting is, how soon can we use this?
So this year, we're launching our parent portal for any parents that are on our wait list. So if you're a parent, get on our wait list. And we are looking to connect with even more pilot schools for the fall for the 2022 to 23 school year. So those educators in the classroom, talk to us afterwards. And next month, we are going to be raising our seed round. So the investors in here, please come find me afterwards as well.
Yeah, how you doing? So beyond this next year, we hope to create a world of schools and families that have better relationships with students, schools. We want students to really be self-advocates and really have that ownership over their IEP process. And truly, we see IEP and Me's mission going beyond just the United States so that we can tap into the global classroom space and support all students with learning differences.
So thank you so much for your time. We hope to see you soon. And if you have questions, just let us know.
And just a technology point, I want to make sure that the timer is set to 5 minutes now. I'm having some, just to make sure that they have enough time for the Q&A. Great. So first, questions from the panel of judges. Any questions top of mind? Feel free to jump in.
Could you tell me a little more about who's doing the translation from the IEP to the content on the platform? And then who are you charging, or have you thought about the business model?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second question first. The schools, individual schools or districts, are going to be the buyers for us. So that's our business model. The translating that we do, so as of right now, IEP and Me is an add-on. So the legal document the PDF that they use, that's still their compliance piece. So we incorporate software and some, back-end services to take what's in that document and put it into that format.
So would you say that's more of a AI technology, or humans would be inputting that?
Right now, it's a little bit of both, and we are moving towards the AI and machine learning.
I would add that due to the legal compliance nature of it, there will always be that back-end sort of look over for special education, but the goal would be to promote as much AI as possible in the process.
Any other questions from the judges? Otherwise, I can go to a number of questions that come in from the audience. First question, does IEP and Me integrate with other platforms like Eduphoria, Frontline, etc.?
So we are building those, and we are in talks with a lot of the the student information system platforms like Power School and things like that, to make sure that there's as much of that back-end connection as possible. Trust me, as educators, we are not going to ask any operations teams or principals or special educators to add more work to their plate by inputting that information.
Great. Next question. How easy is it for educators to update goals and tracking documents?
So one of the things I want to be clear about is right now we are not the legal compliance system. So the updating of the goals right now is still going to be in whatever platform that the special educator has to use. What IEP and Me does is we take those goals and we make them interactive, and so that everyone on the same team can see and also provide data points on those goals. So for now, we have a long-term plan to take over some of those other systems. But for now, this is where students can provide data points and say, you know, if I have a reading comprehension goal, I'm going to show you the short answer questions on the text that I just read. Or if I have a writing goal, I'm going to attach my latest essay to this writing goal from Google Classroom or something like that, so that the special education teacher and the general education teachers have a lot less that they need to do in searching for those data points to make their IEPs compliant and data-driven.
Great. And be sure to upvote the questions that have already been added. Next question. How do you differentiate your company from similar organizations in the space, such as LiftEd?
So LiftEd is a little bit different. LiftEd, from my understanding, is a lot of interaction around specifically behavior goals. So they do a lot with ABA and BCBA. But what we do is we bring, I think the biggest differentiator is that we bring students onto that platform. LiftEd, I know, I've talked to their founder, he's amazing. And I know that they bring parents into this, but we also bring students into their whole document, not just a behavior goal, not just the parents being able to see it. If they want to invite outside providers like tutors or anything like that, they can invite them to the IEP and Me team. So it's a little bit more student-centered and a little bit wider focus of more than just one part of the IEP.
Great. We do have a number of upvotes coming through, which is terrific. Next question. How can you help with holding schools accountable to implement the IEP?
Yeah, so one of the things that schools find challenging a lot of times is we do have an IEP team. So the IEP team is not just the special educator, it's not just the family, it's not just the student, it's a whole group of people. And where there may be a hiccup or a hurdle is when people don't have that understanding. There's not that clarity around what the IEP document says because it's so based in the legalese. So by removing that, having this very clear system, it allows people to truly understand and give real input, not spend so much of their time trying to translate and understand. So it actually will lead to a lot of that sort of compliance support that we see, because just make sure everyone's in the same page and really centering that student support.
I think that's all we have time for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, IEP and Me. All right, next up, we have Readley. Let's welcome Readley to the stage.
Check, check. Hello. All right. Hey, my name is Drew Madsen. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Readlee, and we are abolishing the literacy gap with the latest in speech recognition. Being illiterate denies you a lifetime of opportunities, and I've seen this firsthand in my 9 years in the classroom as a certified master teacher. 2 out of every 3 children are not proficient in reading, and COVID has made this dramatically worse. I think of my student, Oscar, whose reading gap was so great, his emotional survival depended on him not being seen as a struggling reader. And I taught over 100 kids and never had the capacity to sit down with Oscar and just give him that one-on-one support. But then one day I had this crazy idea. I said, Oscar, why don't you just take out your phone, read aloud, record a voice memo, and read aloud your homework and send it to me. And what happened next changed our lives. I immediately knew the quality and the quantity of Oscar's reading and could text him some tips on how to get better. He started reading more and had more confidence in class. And then I realized Inclusive speech recognition could unlock this deliberate practice and individualized support for millions of students like Oscar and teachers like me. See, the thing is, if we want to improve literacy outcomes, teachers need accurate, reliable, and consistent reading data. But the problem is that current tools are time-intensive, they are unreliable, and they are often approximations for reading. And students, oh man, they need to read. The average American student reads for 15 minutes a day or less. Millions of kids don't read. So what Readly does is it solves the data problem and the practice problem. And this is how it works. It's pretty cool. So teachers assign any text. That can be a physical book, digital curriculum, a web article. You can think of us as like the Shazam for reading aloud. And then students read out loud on any device, and they're given some immediate feedback right away. And you can think of that feedback as like the Grammarly for reading aloud. So we immediately give a transcript to show students and teachers, say, this is how you're doing. We give tips to teachers for how to improve their practice. And then we progress monitor this over time every day. And the demand for this product is kind of crazy. So we launched our new product on January 1st. We had over 45,000 students enroll within the first 2 months. And this is what we're seeing is that elementary school teachers are replacing reading records, reading logs, accelerated reader programs with Readly. We're seeing special educators use Readly for IEP tracking and supporting students who are ELL learners. We're seeing it for small group, reading accountability. We're even seeing high school teachers use it for SAT and ACT practice, AP exam practice. But this is what's cool, is we're collecting so much data, which will allow us to build a speech model that's inclusive of all the diverse voices that are part of American schools, and we'll be able to create a literacy hub of all reading data, regardless of the publisher or curriculum. So, what really matters, though, is impact. We've published an efficacy study in collaboration with professors at Harvard, which proved that students who used Readly outperformed their peers on standardized exams, and this was validated by a third party. We've got an amazing team of advisors who are leaders in the field in speech recognition and social impact. And then we've got an awesome team. We founded 3 ed tech companies before. One of them had a successful exit, and we've won lots of fancy awards. But at the end of the day, what Readly is all about is the Oscars of the world, right? So for the teachers who are in the audience right now, you can sign up for free at readly.com to try it out with your classes. If you want to see our case study, go to our website. Because at the end of the day, we're all about abolishing the literacy gap, because every student deserves a lifetime of opportunity, and that starts with literacy. So thank you so much, and I look forward to the questions. This is so cool. I can't wait for them, and the judges too, so let's jump in.
Right over to the judges then. Thank you. Riyaz.
How is the data that you get from Readly shared with educators, and then also how does it integrate with any other tools?
How is the data is shared with educators, and how is it integrated with other tools? So it's shared with educators. We have a dashboard that shows progress monitoring, all of that. You just log into Readly, you can see all that in a dashboard, and then we're integrated into all the other major tools like Google Classroom and Clever.
Cool.
Clever.
Heejae.
Could you tell us a little more about the back-end technology? How does the speech recognition work?
Yeah.
I have a second question. I'm not a literacy expert, so how much of the literacy education is based on read out aloud? Because that's a central assumption, it sounds like.
So what's the speech rec, and how is reading out loud based in literacy? So speech rec is, we tested a ton of speech models because we wanted to get this right. So we tried Nuance, Cobalt, AWS. We started to build our own. What we found was actually the most flexible for us was AWS. But the key thing is like all speech recognition is trained on white, male, Eurocentric voices like mine. And that is fundamentally wrong. And so what we're kind of doing in the long term is to build that deep speech model, and we just need lots of data. So in the meantime, what we do is we're very upfront with teachers and students, just like kind of Grammarly is like, we think this is what you said, but if you think it's wrong, you should let us know, and you can. The second is like, well, reading out loud, like, how is that useful, right? Well, all of Common Core standards have speaking standards to them. And then what's cool about reading out loud is the science shows is if you read something out loud, you will remember on average 20% more vocabulary. And so that's why we're seeing students, even in high school, practicing for the SAT exam because they need to show like, hey, I can read out loud, I know how to say all these words, and that improves my outcomes.
Just curious if you could just dig a little bit more into. First of all, I appreciate the speech model. I think it's really great. Can you just dig a little bit more into like how students' reading scores are actually jumping and comprehension? Just a double click there would be really.
Sure. How are students' reading scores jumping in comprehension and the like? So first, as we look at the data, so summative, formative exams. The case study that we did looked specifically at PSAT exams and studied that over the course of a spring. A teacher who used the platform with all of her students except one class. And you can read our case study. You can go to readlee.com and check it out. And then honestly, anecdotally, it's also in just the data that we're seeing with like so many teachers who are signing up for the platform because they are saying like, one teacher told us, this is the best thing I've seen in 20 years. I've been waiting for this for so long.
And is it like an average, like are students improving their reading scores by X amount like over time, or what does that look like in terms of just like actual numbers?
Yeah, so the short answer is like, I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head for the case study. And we are early enough right now that we couldn't give you like an average because the use cases are so interesting. We're seeing all the way to university, because universities are actually using it for English language learners, students who just want to be proficient in speaking academic language.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
We have several questions from the audience. The first one is Readlee ready for K-12? And is it bilingual? 2 questions in one.
Readlee is ready for K-12. It's used by, I just checked this morning, it was actually 50,000. I was so excited about that. And what was the second part of that?
Is it bilingual?
It's not bilingual, but funny enough, we have a lot of Spanish teachers use Readlee to practice reading aloud. You can use it with other languages. We have Hebrew schools who are using it. We even have music teachers who just want kids to practice singing aloud. So it's trained on English, but you can use it for what you want.
Great. Next question. Is there also a dashboard for students and families?
Oh, yeah. And that's why it's so awesome, and you should sign up now.
Okay, next question. How does data Readlee collects and utilizes align with or not with the science of reading?
How does the data that Readlee collects align with the science of reading? So I think the key thing is like we measure all the core fluency metrics, so words correct per minute, total time read, new words read, and a lot of other metrics. And so every component that Readlee has is grounded in the science of reading. I followed my dreams and applied to Harvard, and I was like, holy crap, I got in. And I'm like, I have to build this product there, and all the professors there helped me build the product. So everything is grounded in the science, because that's what teachers and students deserve.
One final question.
Oh, wow.
What is your business model?
Oh, our business model. So we sell to schools.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Readlee. And next up, we have, I got too excited by that Q&A to remember who's coming up next. It's Effectify. Let's welcome Effectify to the stage.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ilya, representing Affectify along with my co-founder, Mel. We are excited to be here. And we are cognitive scientists at Columbia University, and we have spent the last decade, wow, this is really bright, researching how to make social emotional learning more effective. In 2019, we received a National Science Foundation grant that enabled us to build an early version of what is now thinkhuman.tv. Now, you don't need to be a researcher to know that the pandemic has severely worsened what was already a dire mental health crisis among teens. And this can have, lifelong effects, right? All of us have experienced emotional struggles, or know someone close to us who has, right? And decades of research have shown that social and emotional skills, like self-awareness, can be a powerful protective factor for psychological health. At the same time, one of the biggest problems among solutions attempting to improve these skills is quality of content, particularly when it comes to older learners like adolescents and beyond. Adolescents, young adults, they're a sophisticated audience, right? They're a tough crowd. And educators have come to recognize that in order to reach them, you have to meet them where they are, which is why we built thinkhuman.tv. It integrates social and emotional learning directly with major streaming sites like Netflix and Disney+, and it uses emotionally compelling content that young people, and not so young people, find truly enjoyable, they truly like, right, to improve key skills like empathy and self-regulation. We do this using the latest learning and emotion science, and a recent efficacy study showed significant improvement in emotion management after 2 weeks of using the platform. So how does Think Human work? Well, here's a quick demonstration. A user on a streaming site selects from a list of titles. Then as they watch a show or a movie, in this case Encanto, they get to do activities designed to improve skills like emotion labeling. Now, I know we don't talk about Bruno, but with Think Human, we can now all learn about the Madrigal family's emotions, including Bruno's. And the platform also features integrated gamification and analytics. Next slide. Next slide. We've got 25 titles now, and we are expecting over 100 by the end of the year. And we're very deliberate about offering a diverse set of stories so that every learner can find content that's authentic to them. So we've begun generating revenue through pilots with a number of institutions, including the New York City Department of Education, which runs the largest school district in the country. And we're launching pilots with a growing number of mental health professionals. And both of these groups, educators and therapists, are incredibly excited about this product. Longer term, we're seeking to integrate Think Human directly with streaming apps so that it's available on tablets and TVs. We've already begun discussions with several major streaming services about that. We see a future where Think Human is in every school, putting emotional knowledge and skills at the core of the educational experience, and giving the kids of today the emotional tools to make them caring and healthy adults of tomorrow. Thank you very much.
You're welcome for that Bruno joke, by the way.
That was all Mel. I can't see anything. I'm blinded by the lights of the song. Excited for questions, copying the previous presenter.
Any questions from the judges? Heejae.
Who does the content creation behind it all? And what is the incentive of a streaming service to partner with you guys?
Great question. Do you want to do that one?
Yeah, so the content creation, what's interesting about that is, so we teach a course, the Cognitive Science of Social Emotional Learning at Columbia University. So ourselves, and we have a team and editorial staff of mappers who are our former students who are already trained in cognitive science, helping us to semantically map the narratives on these streaming services. And so there's a whole preparation process that goes into this. And we're actually, right now, it takes a little bit of time to prepare the content, but ultimately we're going to leverage our users to help us actually prepare the content itself. So we're really going to streamline that process, and ultimately we're going to use more AI, machine learning, things like that.
Yes, there's a crowdsourcing element in the works to make that process faster.
And there was a second part to that question that was
The
motivation.
incentive of the streaming service.
Oh, yeah, so there are a number of benefits to streaming services. Now, granted, this is a longer-term goal, but so number one is that it can be a potential additional revenue stream. So particularly parents are very keen, because they're concerned about screen time, to have the ability to say, oh, hey, you're watching PJ Masks. For those of you in the audience, if you have like 5 or 6 year olds, you know what I'm talking about. Then you can turn this on, like closed captioning, right? And the students kids get these interactive questions that help them boost their emotional skills. So streaming service can charge a couple of bucks a month for that. So revenue stream, social good aspect, of course. They get to sort of improve the world. And also it makes content evergreen. So one of the biggest reasons people don't come to a streaming site or don't become a subscriber anymore is if there's no interesting new content. So this makes content evergreen in that you can now watch a piece of content to improve your emotional skills even if you've seen it before.
Is there a back-end mechanism where, like, let's say a school, for example, utilize the platform, and then there would be some type of report that would roll up that would show this is where my kids are really struggling, and give recommendations on what to do, or what does that look like?
Great question. So we're all about metrics and analytics, and schools, administrators, and teachers can actually get individual reports and aggregate data. So they could see how the whole school is doing, how classrooms are doing, and also how individual students are doing. We map, right, the content according to cognitive science principles, so we can actually really accurately assess how well students are doing on both their knowledge of emotion science concepts and also how they're applying their skills. So how they're doing with empathy in the moment, how they're doing with self-awareness in the moment, and how they're doing with all these other SEL skills in the moment, and also how they're doing on self-reflection. Yeah. So we're one of like the only SEL solutions that can objectively measure these soft skills that are known for being really difficult to measure in the field.
Mm-hmm.
So subscriptions can be cost prohibitive at times for many families that have maybe other things they're thinking about. So what's your solution, or how are you partnering with subscriptions or making it possible for students and families to use this?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So actually, the first step is that we're expanding to Peacock, which has a free tier, right? So that addresses the issue of having to pay for content on a streaming service. So that's kind of the basic solution, and we're going to be expanding to other free tier streaming services. And the other thing is enabling teachers to use it in the classroom, right? So that even if you're unable to do this at home, our primary mode of recommended usage is reverse classroom, where students are using it at home. But if you're unable to use it at home, the teacher can, put it on a smart board and have students engage with it that way. So even if there's an issue of access at home, then you could do it in the classroom.
A few quick questions from the audience. How will you overcome costs of licensing content from streaming services?
Great
Love
question.
that
We love that question.
So, this is the beauty of the technology that we're using. It's a browser extension, and we're not the only browser extension out there, as you know, that interacts with streaming services. You probably heard of Netflix Party during the pandemic. They're now called Teleparty because they work with all the streaming sites. And basically, we sidestep the issue of copyright altogether because we're not using the copyrighted content. The end user has a subscription, has access to the streaming service, they have an account. We're simply overlaying original content of our own that's educational. So we even had our law firm do an analysis that shows how we don't violate copyright in any way. So we're in the clear as far as copyright, and that is what kind of enabled us to liberate all this content and use this amazing content for social emotional.
But one day, we'd love to work with content producers and streaming services. Ilya and I are artists ourselves, and we really value the integrity of art, and working together with the actors and the writers, wow, that would be an amazing future.
We have started those conversations.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Effectify. Next up, we have Our World, so let's welcome them to the stage.
Walking through Austin this week and looking at all these buildings, standing here in this room, I can't help but wonder, what used to be here? Our software turns back the hands of time to allow users to connect with stories in past worlds. Miawa, Nateawa, Kilma Latin. I'm Kilma Latin, founder and CEO of Our Worlds, joined today by co-founder and CTO Catherine Ng. Not only is what we're doing incredibly fascinating, but it's also important for education. First, it's no secret that Native Americans are underserved, and in particular with STEM. Some tribes still don't have reliable access to the internet. Second, as a student of history, I know the subject is incomplete, it can be a little tedious, and it's largely written from the perspective of outsiders. We're addressing both of these problems in the most transformative ways possible. Imagine a future where education unfolds around you wherever you go. The idea that as you move through your day, you're also moving through content relevant to the place where you are. We enable devices to unlock the stories around us. We're bridging the space-time continuum by georeferencing the past with our present for the future. What can indigenous wisdom teach us about the metaverse? More than you might think. Indigenous wisdom tells us that knowledge transfer happens in nature, deeply tied to the places where we are. We're redefining the metaverse model to incorporate this wisdom and also adopt a communal approach to world building. On the screen, you see some work that we did with Dr. Stanley Rodriguez, a tribal elder, whose primary source narratives are teaching us about geosciences, history, language, and geography of the Kumeyaay people who have lived in San Diego for over 10,000 years. And in fact, he's such a strong believer in our work that he's now on our board of advisors. We're putting code to culture, and in the process, we're bringing a more profound meaning to the use of immersive realities. The scope, it's global. Because whether you're interested in Native Americans or not, there's no shortage of content that we can bring to life in this way, anywhere in the world, including here in Austin. We wanted to start at the beginning of American history with a primary source series dedicated to the Native American. Think Pokemon Go meets the Smithsonian, all from a primarily Native-owned company. We're capturing intergenerational imaginations, inspiring Native Americans of all ages to participate in our process and owning their digital futures. We're also beginning to capture the attention of institutions, conferences, festivals, and journalists who understand that an inclusive approach to world building benefits everybody. But one key question is, what do Indian tribes think about this? Over the course of 18 months, we've secured the endorsement of over 25 tribal nations. In addition, the South by Southwest world premiere of our XR film, debuting next week, has the endorsement of the third largest Indian tribe in the United States, the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. We're deeply humbled to be the company that's building all of these bridges. It's a testament to our model. Our software was formed as a benefit corporation to raise private capital in order to develop our software while serving our humanitarian mission. Our advisory board is comprised of leaders in education and science, and they're passionate about sharing our mission as well. So join us in creating the future, because every square mile has a story, and we'll help you find it. Thank you. Come on stage. We'll share a microphone, I guess, for the
Questions from the judges, please.
Sure. Hi.
Can you tell me a little more about the business model?
Yeah, that's a great question. So certainly what we're doing has great intersection with K-12 mainstream education. And so for that audience, we would think about creating curricula that's on a subscription-based model, because we are going to be adding content over time. And that's, we see the project as partly a technology project and partly really a content project. And by content, we are courting contributors all over the country, and we hope to keep expanding that. And certainly for the the content that we're creating, it has great intersections with foundations, and it aligns very nicely with the missions of cultural heritage preservation.
I'll add something to that. We did a pilot project where we opened up an indigenous marketplace for a few days to see if we could tie the content to an artist from New Mexico. We were able to raise some money as being a broker with a native marketplace. And so this is a great way to engage native artists who now have to take all of their stuff to Santa Fe or to powwows. They have to trek all their stuff, and it's, Indian reservations are so remote, so we're able now to bridge that gap for Indian arts and crafts, which do sell at a premium, by the way, because Indian arts and crafts are highly sought after.
Does that answer your question? No, go ahead.
Do you all currently have any curriculum connected to the app? So like the one you were showing right now about in San Diego, how does that connection work beyond just seeing what you're seeing when you're maybe using augmented reality?
No, absolutely. We're in the process of developing curricula for that. It has great intersections with geography, history, standards aligned, NGSS curricula. And, our educational advisor, Christina Steiner, who you saw on our presentation, is advising us as to how those kinds of narratives can intersect with mainstream education. And, certainly on the back end in the technology, we're building in, engagement metrics and, sort of inflection points. So where do the students actually repeat the video? Where do they, what videos did they watch over and over again? And from those metrics, we can gauge what it is they need to know more about it, and we're able to then supply pathways to additional content that would support their inquiry. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll go to the questions from the audience. The most popular question so far is a two-part question. How is content created? And if via users, how is it moderated?
Oh, that's a great question. So in terms of how content is actually created, we are, Kilma has been absolutely instrumental in this, and it really can't be overstated how important it is to have a really intentional, sort of culturally correct approach to addressing the issues of knowledge creation and getting everyone's voices into the knowledge continuum. I think one of the reasons why there's been a disparity in historical perspectives is because some of the knowledge creation paradigms haven't always intersected in the best way. So certainly the approach that we've found successful is to invite people to come to our studio. We interview them. They provide our narratives. We film them in our volumetric video or 360 degree content capture processes, and we develop the content with their input. And just as far as the second part of the question, yeah, user input. So we will one day have a user tool that enables people to share their perspectives from their geolocations. And we do think that moderation is certainly something that needs to be looked at in the context of how social media is done today, right? So we are working on something that's more kind of like an upvote process. So does that answer your question?
It was from the audience, so I can't
Okay.
respond to that.
Yeah.
But I do have one more question. I think we
Yes,
have time
yes,
for just one more.
Okay.
What does collaboration look like with organizations who are doing this, such as Movers and Shakers NYC?
I was so pleased to be able to meet Idris from Movers and Shakers. I met. Are you in the audience? Are you asking the question? So essentially, we love what you're doing, and I think that certainly both of our missions align very nicely, and we are basically using the real world, if we can call it metaverse. To tell stories in a place-based inquiry, moment of inquiry kind of way, and. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, does that answer it? Yes. So.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we are just now at time,
Yeah,
so
perfect.
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, our world. All right, everybody, we have our final presenter. Please welcome Schoolytics to the stage.
Hi, I'm Courtney Monk, a co-founder at Schoolytics. We're building an all-in-one data platform for students to make data easy for educators. I want to start by introducing you to my son, Henry. He's in 6th grade. He's using a lot of EdTech apps that are collecting data on his learning. His school is also collecting data on things like grades and attendance. So the good news is that this data is finally in a digital format. It's not on paper in a filing cabinet somewhere. But while we could be using this data and combine it to create a deeply personalized learning experience for Henry, we actually don't. In reality, this large group of people, all trying to support Henry, often don't have the right data at the right time to do the best that we could. We need a platform to combine all of Henry's data in one place. So why doesn't this data platform exist yet? Well, schools and districts don't have centralized data infrastructure on which a platform like this could exist. They don't have the resources to build it themselves. And on top of that, many EdTech players make it pretty darn hard to export and connect to data from their systems. So that's why we built Schoolytics. Schoolytics ingests data from multiple places and sources, stores it in a managed data warehouse, and delivers insights and action steps to users. We're like Mint or Segment for education. Our secret sauce is that our teacher product turns on in just a few minutes. We've also built experiences for students and parents, which differentiates us from most other edtech products. So what does this actually mean in person? Well, we save educators time and help them make sense of data. For example, for a teacher, we take their gradebook, which looks like this, very, very detailed but disaggregated information, and we give them this, out-of-the-box summary metrics on real-time data, and this, beautiful data visualizations so they can spot trends, and most importantly, this, suggested next steps so that users can take action on their data. We know that we're making a difference for teachers and students. In a time when over 60% of teachers are stressed and burned out, we save them 30 to 60 minutes per week every week. We also know that students whose teachers use Schoolytics on a regular basis complete more homework. And guess what? More homework completion means better grades. We also are providing principals and other administrators with the aggregate view of data that they've been desperately seeking. Our product-led growth strategy has led to amazing traction so far. We've built a community of over 11,000 teachers who love our free product, and they've created a key lead gen engine for our 65 sales to schools and districts who buy an annual SaaS subscription to Schoolytics. And we're now processing data for over 300,000 students every day. Our team is perfect for this challenge because we are experts in data and education. My co-founder Aaron and I spent 5 years working together as data scientists at Chegg before we started Schoolytics. And as an elected school board member and a parent, I see schools' data challenges firsthand nearly every day. I believe that good data is essential to helping teachers and students reach their full potential. Our Schoolytics vision is therefore to give educators data superpowers. It just shouldn't be that hard for them to have good data. We do this in 3 steps. The first thing, we magically fetch data and clean it up and automate manual tasks. The second thing is we deliver insights on that data in clear and easy to understand dashboards. And finally, we give users directions to empower them to take action from their data. No one wants data to sit in a dashboard. And that's how Schoolytics makes a positive impact on teaching and learning for students like my son, Henry. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, especially as the last person.
Questions from the judges first.
How do you convince all these systems to give you the data? And there's a lot of them.
Yeah, so our teacher product is built off of Google Classroom. And so individual teachers can authorize access for us. So, like any product, they go through terms of service acknowledgement. And then for pulling in more data from more systems, we work with the school district to get access. So we don't go directly and try to just pull data on their behalf. We get authorization from their technology team.
Just 2 quick questions. Teachers get a lot of different tools.
Yeah.
What does it look like to train a teacher and to make them proficient in using it? So that's 1. And then 2 is, I blanked on that one right now.
Okay, so training teachers, we actually have a person on staff who's a former teacher, an instructional coach. She does all of our trainings. We offer free workshops. We actually provide all PDN training for free for both teachers and administrators because we know that using data can be hard. We try to make it as easy as possible. It turns on basically with a few clicks. And yes, I agree. Teachers are overwhelmed with platforms. That's one of the main reasons why we wanted to build Schoolytics is because, if you're a teacher and you're like, okay, I got to go to PowerSchool to enter grades, and then I got to use Google Classroom to give assignments, and then I got to do double grading, and then I have to go over to Illuminate and figure out who's doing what on what assessment. You just want it all in one place. It shouldn't be that hard. We can use software and technology to make their lives better.
Got it. Thank you. And my second question, I remembered, who are some of your competitors in this space?
That's a good question. So there is a company called Schoolzilla, which was bought by Renaissance, and they offer some managed data. A company called Bright Bytes also does some dashboards and analytics. Our differentiator really is our product-led growth approach. So we are free to teachers. Teachers can sign up and start using it right away. And we are also, I think, much more affordable than a lot of other players, just because cloud computing is, newsflash, pretty affordable.
Thank you.
With the suggested next steps for like teachers and students, are there also resources that are attached to that, links or whatever it might be, so folks know?
Such a good question. So right now, what we do is, like, for example, if we automate sending an email to students for their missing assignments from a teacher, those assignments are hyperlinked, so students aren't stuck like looking at this and thinking, what do I do next? They can just click through and see the assignment. But as for content, I think that's where we'll probably go over the long term. We really actually see ourselves as a hub for teaching and learning. And so hopefully content providers will come in and be able to offer teachers content for assignments and also to personalize student learning. If you can imagine, if a student is absent from school, it's okay to send them a text message to be like, hey, you should come to school tomorrow. But it's better to send them a text message that says, hey, you missed these 3 assignments. Here's a bunch of content to help you catch up. And as a data scientist, I have to actually kind of like hold myself back a little bit because that's where my head goes immediately. But right now, we're kind of doing the building blocks for that.
Great, thank you.
Moving to the audience questions then. Yes, great. First question, what districts and schools have you piloted with to date?
Oh, we have a bunch. Let's see. I guess I can name a few. So we're in many districts and schools. It's a range of like small private schools all the way up to large school districts. Our largest customer is actually a university in the Philippines that uses Google Classroom, and they wanted executive administrator dashboards. But school districts like Orange Unified are some of our customers. Yeah.
Next question. Can you expand more on how Schoolytics generates insights and action steps based on the data?
Yes. So this is big. You guys probably all read that article, I can't remember where it was last week, that said data actually doesn't help students learn more because nobody knows what to do with it. And so what we're trying to do is actually promote action steps from the data. On our teacher experience, we give them multiple things that they can do. They can contact students, they can contact parents, they can create progress reports to share with students and parents, and they have a list of assignments they have to grade, so they can go and do that grading. I think the world is our oyster a little bit in terms of making more progress in this space, because that's what I'm passionate about, is not letting data sit in dashboards. I spent a long time as a data scientist making dashboards for people who never looked at them. And so I'm trying to avoid that desperately with Schoolytics.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Schoolytics. Craig, what an incredible set of 6 companies.
It was pretty fantastic. And I was just thinking, it was almost like the 1939 Academy Awards when we presented. Only one could win.
But these companies are taking on so many different important challenges in our world, from our education system to our culture, using the latest and greatest technology. I've just been amazed.
Agreed. And thank you for everyone attending, especially the judges, for your great questions. I do have the pleasure to invite all of you to attend the competition announcement winner party, which is this evening at Lucille Patio, which is just a short 11-minute walk from here. I believe it starts at 7:30. It will run until about 11, and I'm guessing around 8:30 the winner will be announced. So please join then, and you'll have the opportunity to talk more with all the great presenters today. And thank you again. Dan?
Yeah. Thank you for all the wonderful questions from the audience. Thank you again to our judges, to our presenters. See you all on Rainy Street tonight.